Okay, everyone, we are about to do a 24-hour readathon. For those of you who don't know, basically, it's when you, in the span of 24 hours, you try to sleep as little and read as much. That's it. That's literally it. You try to read for as much of 24 hours as you can. I'm doing this with Sherelle. We are both starting off with the same book, Children of Anguish and Anarchy. But first, we need essentials. Yeah. Okay. We have secured the iced coffee and we're ready to start. So I'm reading it on my phone, so I can't really film myself reading it, but just know that I'm reading it. We're starting at 10:30 a.m. Okay. We are over a quarter of the way through this book. We're 27% in. And all I've been doing for the past few hours is ranting with Sherelle and then regretting my decision to take on this book. We've been with this book since the first one, because this is the third book in the series. The first one is... that's the first one right there. That one with the raid. We've been with her since that. And the series just, after the first book, I was like, wow, that was actually really good. This was impressive. Like, I had fun reading this. The second book came in. I was like, the standard has dropped. Definitely. This book came in. The standard has vanished. There's nothing. What is the standard at this point? There's a lot going on. A lot of nothing. It's been... how long it's been? It's been about 4 hours. We're going pretty strong with this whole keep reading thing. Although I haven't been reading like 4 hours full through. I've been having to do stuff like here and there in between. So the reading's been very like broken down. Also, as I said, I was complaining and ranting to Sherelle. So there were a lot of gaps in between. But yes, so we're gonna carry on. We have to finish this thing within these 24 hours. We cannot drag the suffering beyond the scope of this 24 hours. We were getting somewhere and then I fell asleep. Yeah, I don't know if I prefaced this video by saying I only had like 4 or 5 hours of sleep because I decided to sleep at 3 in the morning. Fun times. Anyways, I fell asleep. We're about 40% of the way through. It's still bad. Yeah. So the first we finished part 1. Yes. So part 1 was basically just fighting. There was a lot of fighting. I was really bored with part 1 because it was literally just fighting. And then part 2, there's not really much that happened in the few chapters that I've read. Anyways, the thing that I'm realizing with this book is the problem is it feels like it's the middle of a completely different book. You know what I mean? It feels like the first half of this book is missing. It's the third book in a series, but it doesn't feel like it belongs in the series. It feels like the second half of a different book. As we continue. Hmm. It's been many hours. We have like 30 chapters left. Under 100 pages left. So right now we're fighting again. We're back to the fighting. And all I'm gonna say is like I'm not convinced by this villain at all. Cause the way I'm seeing it up here is like, "Rrr, he's this big, huge, the typical tyrant thing that's going on. Especially the way that that he's written. It's like, oh, he's this big, brooding person. Nah, 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 nah. Whole time, this girl is busy saying, no, he's so young, he's so pretty. He's like, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. I think my suspicion is initially he was supposed to be young and pretty, and then he was supposed to fall for the main girl, Mughal. And then eventually the author kept writing the story, and then she was like, oh, I kind of forgot about that. But like, I already wrote him like that, so let's just keep going. Girl, you should have gone back and rewritten this as the like 56-year-old man that he is, okay? That is not a 23-year-old. That is a gross, huge man. And I understand, listen, this is like a children's book, and the children are probably like, no, 23 years is like ancient. He's practically dust. Shut up. Shut up. This is the fact of the matter is this is a children's book, and I am so upset by this children's book. I am falling asleep again. You see it in my eyes, like I'm literally like I'm asleep in like there's nothing happening here. This book is literally draining my spirit. But we're almost done. What percentage are we? We are 67% of the way through. 67. That's good. This is good. The weather today is actually really weird. You know, the book is finished. The book is done. I have won the challenge. I fell asleep like 4 or 5 times. As long as I finish the book, I am good. And I did finish the book, and therefore I won this challenge. So let's talk about this book so that it can finally be done. Okay. I'm gonna try to say this in as chronological of an order as I can, because I'm trying to organize my thoughts or whatever. Had to get me some tea. Oh, that's good tea. There are mild spoilers because I don't encourage that anyone reads this. So please don't read this book. Okay? I read it so that you don't have to. We're reading the Legacy of Orisha trilogy. It's the last book in the trilogy. This is matcha. Anyways, in the third book, we are basically still facing the same struggles as we were before, okay? There's still this divide in the country. People are still going at it with each other. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of tension. But where we left off in the second book was they were at the climax of this battle that they were having, okay? And then suddenly came in some random ship, and then people got abducted and they got put on the ship. And the third book starts where we left off. People are on the ship and we're waking up, and it turns out we're imprisoned, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, interesting. We have who's imprisoned, what's going on, lo and behold, we get introduced to a brand new enemy. Okay, this enemy, we don't know this enemy at all. It wasn't mentioned in the first two books. There was not a soft launch, nothing for this enemy. They just showed up out of the purple and decided we rocking up in here. At first I was like, okay, anyways, let's progress. Maybe it's gonna make sense, you know? So the characters are based in Orisha, right? This is their land, Orisha. This little land over here. And they mainly speak Yoruba, like the actual language Yoruba. Now, we have this brand new enemy, and they come in, and suddenly they're speaking Icelandic. We never once in the story established, oh, okay, they're like outside nations, they're other people. Like, obviously, you can assume, but the fact that it was not brought up once because we were so heavily focused on what was happening internally, it's like the most random thing. And what was upsetting me was we brought in this whole thing of like, we have to band together to face the common enemy thing as a way to sweep all the past conflict under a rug, okay? That rug is very see-through, by the way. So now, the fact that you just brought in a third element so that you could swiftly sweep the whole motivation behind the past two books under the rug, that feels very lazy to me, because it feels like you created conflict that you yourself A, don't want to resolve, or B, can't resolve. Like, you don't know how to write the resolution. And so you're just like, oh well, yeah, new enemy, okay? And everyone, all the characters, I kid you not, they're like, we must forget everything that we've ever done to each other, all the wrong, everything that's still currently not okay with us. That doesn't matter, because we have a common enemy. So we need to get to that enemy, okay? And it's like, so what was the point of the past two? What was the reason? What was the reason? Honestly, that shouldn't have even been a thing. The first two books, they didn't even need to. They might as well have just not existed. Okay, you could have started this book as its own thing, written a few chapters in the beginning, and then taken off. As much as it peeves me that we're just sweeping our conflict under the rug, it's also a thing of like, why are we including white people in black people's stories? It's like, the first two books we were doing perfectly fine, doing our own thing, and this also irritates me because it brings on the guys that they needed a white element in the story to resolve their own internal stuff that was going on. Like, that was the motivating force for them to actually get their stuff together. So this one is based in Nigeria. The Orisha, is based in Nigeria. Then we have the Icelandic people. Now we have Brazilian people as well. Okay, and this as well frustrated me, because now not only do we need the main enemy to resolve our own issues, we first need to turn to the other society so that we can get our stuff together as well. So on this island, on this Brazilian island, they find out there's another targets, another points of interest for the common enemy, and so now these two sides need to unite. But obviously the African people, they don't have it down. They don't know what the heck they're doing, okay? So they have to come in here, see that everything is perfectly fine, and then they're just like, wow, okay, I guess we need to get our stuff together. So you're telling me this other society, which is literally copy paste of the African society, can hold up perfectly fine by themselves, but the second we hit the African society, it's chaos, it's a mess, they don't know what they're doing. It's like we're saying, everyone else has got it together, babes. The enemy, the newfound ally, you're a mess. Because even with the characters, it's like, the one character, okay, he doesn't have powers. Avatar The Last Airbender? Think of Sokka. He's Sokka. So Sokka, he's here and he's like, oh my gosh, like I need to get my stuff together, I need to get stronger for myself and then for everyone else, because we're all in this war together, whatever. Cool, fine. Tell me why Sokka has to get there. Firstly, he has to use the power of the Icelandic people to feel strong, and then he goes to the Brazilian people, then they're like, forget that, try again. Then he has to use the Brazilian influences to feel strong. He couldn't do any of this at home. He couldn't find his own strength in his land. Mind you, a very big part of the story is that the magic that they all use, okay, the magic of the people, comes from the land, okay? So they place emphasis on the strength and the importance of their homeland, but when it actually comes to executing these things, it's like, no, sorry, we can't do that. We have to go elsewhere to find strength, yeah. And it just makes it feel like we're saying that the African society was incompetent in every single aspect, okay? Firstly, the people are killing each other. They don't even know how to manage their own powers. They can't even train the people without powers. So it's all a mess. And then they're getting attacked. They don't know how to band together. It's just a mess. On this Brazilian island, we discovered that the story was actually inspired by Moana. Let me tell you. This story was inspired by Moana, and no one is gonna tell me anything else. The story, I was reading about people tracking the stars in order to navigate the ocean. There was a great statue that breathed life into the whole island. There was spirits speaking to people, encouraging the people to be who they are, find their strength. That's Moana. That's literally Moana. Literally, all she needed was a song. And then she would have been Moana. Like, honestly, do that. Watch Moana instead of reading this. Because honestly, you know what? Moana is a great example. Moana is a perfectly great example of what the story could have been. Listen, okay? I'm not trying to say it's not okay for the characters to get help along the way or whatever, you know? I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it feels very backhanded to me that the only way so far that they've been able to do anything productive and progressive is through means of other people. So without these other people, they would have just constantly gone at it with each other and been, what, eventually run each other into the ground? And then the whole idea of the main antagonist. I just don't understand the whole idea behind the main antagonist. This dude was literally nowhere to be seen. He shows up in one scene in the beginning, and then suddenly he's all the way at the end. I'm editing this, and as I'm editing this, I'm also realizing that a huge part of this ominous villain's plans was based off of pure coincidence. Like, there was absolutely no strategy involved at all in any of his mastermind plans that just so happened to make him this daunting creature. Like, everything that he did, he was relying on intuition and coincidence in order to win in a war. For example, at the end, when he executed his huge plan, right? The main idea was that he knew that the characters were going to come and find him. It's not a thing of, oh, I made it so that they would be here. I put steps in place so that things could happen. It's just like, no, I knew you'd show up. I absolutely knew you would. Like, why wouldn't you? How did this get past editing is my question. I don't care that you went to Harvard and that you got a literary degree and that you studied wada in Brazil. Overall, it's really confusing to me that this is the kind of stuff that we've got out there. Like, these are the kinds of books that we've got out there. We've got people reading this. I kid you not, I have read fanfics with a lot more substance than this, okay? All I'm saying is there are people out there who can actually write. There are people out there with actual, like, literary vision, okay? And it's like, there are some aspects where it's you can think to yourself, if this guy was smart enough to get his way in the beginning, he'd be smart enough to get his way constantly. So he's supposed to be someone who's constantly going at it, being the strong person, like the strong-willed person, like, I will get what I want because my goal is great. I have willpower. Why did you give that willpower to the enemy and not the main character? Why is the main character like this? Flip-floppy. She can't decide. Must I not? So this guy who can do all of this, magically, he can't find anything else. They have to find him. In fact, they have to take the battle to him. And it's like, I don't know, to me, it feels as though from the very beginning, it was all just plot armor. Because at first, when his goal is to acquire the main character, that's it. His goal is to acquire the main character for his own device purposes, okay? He's got plans for her. And so in the first few chapters, he actually gets a hold of the main character, does what he needs to do, and then he's like, see you later. You're telling me this man has been searching for however long for this one person. He gets her in his hands, and then he's like, see you later. He's like, make sure you get her to me later on. I got somewhere to be. Girl, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This man, he's not serious. You can't tell me that was an actual character that you wrote and you were like, that's a good device. Yeah, he ate with that. And he's not the only character that's inconsistent. The rest of the characters are also just not very well written at all, okay? There's no character development at all in any of these characters, aside from Sokka. Sokka, the Sokka of the story, he's moving forward, he's progressing. Everyone else, they're either complaining or moaning or weeping about what? And doing absolutely nothing about it. Then there's one random relationship. That's one thing about this whole story that messes with me so badly. The unnecessary relationships. The unnecessary relationships. We don't need these romantic relationships in the story. It's adding no value to any of this whatsoever, and then it ends up being tiny dramas that we constantly bring up that just makes the story such a drag to get through, because now you're just forcing romance that doesn't even feel right. It feels so forced. There's a lot about this book that just feels extremely forced. And then we get to the actual story. There are some aspects where it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you just do ABC? And then I thought about it and I was like, if we did ABC, we'd end up at a much different place, and the author would have to she'd have to write a more difficult story. It's just easy writing. It's something that's easy to bring about. It's a plot, and you know what was my ever end? When I read, oh, I let out a breath that I didn't know I was holding. That's when I knew, okay, no. Okay, no. No. This book was released when? 2023? And we're still writing that line from 2010. You're not serious. Yeah, absolutely. You're not serious. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Already with the previous book, I was like, this feels like a cash grab. With this one, I know for certain, cash grab. Cash grab. This book came out of nowhere. It doesn't make any sense. It's inconsistent. Also, there is no weight to the story. There are so many characters who have died and then just reappeared. In this last book, there was one character who died at the beginning of the previous book, and then suddenly it's like, wow, oh, you're alive. Okay, let's carry on. I don't understand. There's just like, there's no consequences in the story. And that especially is emphasized with the way we just disregarded all the struggle and the strife that we went through in the first two books. It's like, that was all for nothing. We're just gonna put a little plaster on that and move on with life. I genuinely feel like I wasted my time trying to get to know these characters, trying to invest my energy into understanding this world, into getting to know the different dynamics in society, because it's all literally, it's nothing. It's not. Yeah, guys, when we approach the end of this book, I was so out of it. I read this at 2 in the morning, and then I fell asleep, and I read it at 5 in the morning, and then I woke up and I was like, wow. Overall, my review for the story was that it was lazy, very uninspired, very rushed, very unnecessary. I'm just glad it's over. I'm literally just glad it's over. That's all. That's all. Yeah, so it was supposed to be a 24-hour reading challenges, but with the amount of breaks I had to take in between reading this book, just so that I wouldn't actually lose my brain. At some point, I took a nap, I made a playlist, I did anything but read this book. I just couldn't. I could not. But I'm glad I did it in these 24 hours, because if I didn't do it now, it was literally never going to happen. These 24 hours are the only thing that motivated me to push through this book and reach the end. This was a very confused rant. It's literally just me ranting for a half an hour straight. But yeah, guys, please don't read this book. Don't waste your energy. Yo, I promise you, curiosity will kill you. It will slaughter you. Yeah, yo, guys. This is good tea. What a great way to start the year, with a book that I absolutely hate. Getting the worst out of the way. Slay. If you guys watched my whole rant on this video, you've literally done yourself a favor. You've done yourself a favor. Now you know not to read this book. You know why not to read this book. Yeah. Matcha says bye.
Bye bye.